Welcome back to another episode of 40 Facts about the 40K universe. I am your host, Gershwan, and you are watching One Mind Syndicate. Today we continue talking about Chaos Space Marines, as we talk about the Apostles of Contagion, basically the White Walkers of the Warhammer 40K universe. If you guys are new to the channel, please subscribe. We post Warhammer 40K content every single day, and if you have any suggestions or you guys want to request a video, comment down below. With that said, let's get into 40 facts on the Apostles of Contagion. The Apostles of Contagion are a warband of Chaos Space Marines originally drawn from the Death Guard Traitor Legion that dedicated themselves to the service of the Plague Lord Nurgle. The Apostles of Contagion wear brass color power armor which appear rusty and is marred by decay. The Apostles of Contagion's badge is a crimson colored carrion fly, another of the nearly infinite variations on the mark of Nurgle. The Apostles of Contagion can trace their origin back to the dark days of the Horus Heresy that occurred in the early 31st millennium. They were once Space Marines of the resilient Death Guard Legion. When their legion fell to the vile temptations of Nurgle, Necrosius, a former Death Guard apothecary, cast aside his former profession as a healer and gave himself over wholeheartedly to the predations of the Plague Lord. He soon discovered that he excelled at the demonic arts. As a zealous convert of Nurgle, Necrosius rapidly gathered a loyal following amongst his fellows who had followed their dark master into corruption. Believing in the promise of eternal life brought to mankind through the agency of Nurgle, these disciples would become the first Apostles of Contagion. Bending his knee to no master except for Grandfather Nurgle, Necrosius' resentment of the Death Guard's first captain Typhus, whose betrayal sent the Death Guard to its final damnation, festered into a bitter rivalry. Open conflict erupted in the following years between Necrosius' apostles and the Death Guard warbands led by Typhus, now the Herald of Nurgle and the host of the Plague Lord's destroyed hive. Parting company from their fellows in the Death Guard, the Apostles of Contagion choose to go their own way, spreading disease and Nurgle's greatest gift, the zombie plague of walking death, wherever they went. The Apostles were heedless to whom they brought their unholy blight, whether they were the loyal servants of the Corpse Emperor or even followers of other ruinous powers. As a result of their actions, Necrosius and his apostles have made many enemies and participated in a number of great atrocities over the millennia since the heresy. Like viral infections, the Apostles of Contagion embrace the ranks of the renegades and the heretics to the Imperium, like rotting specters, preaching their poisoned words with their unholy dogma, converting the despaired masses to their dark cause. Necrosius and his vile Plague Marine sorcerers travel amongst the battlefields of the Imperium, conducting rites of the darkest sorcery over the killing grounds, mass graves, and unburied dead, preparing the way for the horror of undeath to come. The corpse of the fallen soon begin to stir in the bloody-soaked earth, as Nurgle's dance of the dead awakened them once more, with Necrosius calling the tune. The Apostles of Contagion are a small but powerful warband, and number among their host not only the rotting Plague Marines, but Nurgle-devoted heretics of uncertain origin, dark acolytes, apostate preachers, and lesser chaos sorcerers, each an apprentice to Necrosius' own master of the necromantis arts. When Necrosius and his warband arrived on the Imperial Armory world of Vrax as part of the counter-assault of the forces of chaos against the Imperial besiegers, his presence was at first unsuspected and unlooked for by ally and foe. Although he would accept no master, least of all the apostate Cardinal Zaphan, nor indeed the mighty Lord Zufar, who garnered the allegiance of the bulk of the Chaos Space Marines operating on Vrax, Necrosius and his followers soon busied themselves with other own nightmarish works. The Apostles of Contagion pass among the ranks of the heretics of Vrax, spreading their bleak and unholy creed and raising legions of the walking dead to unleash on friend and foe alike. And those were 40 facts on the Apostles of Contagion. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, share this with your friends on Facebook, Twitter, or whatever social media you guys use. If you have a Chaos Space Marine player who plays Nurgle, or I should say Plague Marines, show them this video. Now with the return of Mortarion, I have a feeling that we're going to start seeing a lot more people play Plague Marines, and it would be really nice to have, you know, not your standard green army, because that's usually what you see with Plague Marines, but a rust army, so you have that brown and rust effect. It's really awesome and really fun to paint. You get to play around with a lot of pigments and washes, so it would be really fun to have a player, or you yourself, to paint a Plague Marine army different than what you normally see. Now, the thing to keep in mind is if you yourself are going to start collecting this Traitor Legion, be sure, I mean, this is if you care about the lore, be sure that in the lore you either set it up so that your warband actually betrayed Necrosius, because he does not ally himself with Mortarion. The big thing about Chaos Space Marines is, I guess the huge difference between Chaos Space Marines and Loyalist Space Marines is that Chaos Space Marines do not honor their Primarchs the same way that they honor their, or that the Loyalists honor their Primarchs. Part of the reason why is, number one, they don't need to. Their power comes from the gods, so Nurgle would be the number one guy that Necrosius would gravitate towards or think is superior than he is. But most warbands do not see their Primarch as like higher or stronger, I guess you could say. They know that he's stronger in the sense that he's a Primarch and he's like a better, more beefier Space Marine than they are, but they're not going to follow him just because it's a Primarch like the Loyalists do. So you have to add in the lore somehow that the Apostles of Contagion somehow either got annoyed of Necrosius and moved over to Mortarion, or Mortarion like insulted Necrosius somehow and they switched over sides, because there's conflict there. If you do decide to also include Necrosius in your army along with Mortarion, I guess in the lore aspect you can add in there that Mortarion is offering something to Necrosius that he cannot get by himself. Because he is the go-to guy for zombie plagues and whatnot, it might be a different strand of the zombie plague that's more powerful that Mortarion has that he can give to Necrosius, and that's how the allegiance happens, or something like that. You could add that to your lore. Another really cool and interesting thing about the Apostles of Contagion is their ability to raise the dead. As it states, there's a lot of sorcerers, there's a lot of Space Marines or Plague Marines that follow Necrosius, not just because he's a leader or what have you, but because he's teaching others how to raise the dead. In the same way that if you watch the Game of Thrones series right now, the White Walkers, basically the Apostles of Contagion are the White Walkers from Game of Thrones, because they walk around, fight people, and raise the dead. And what's awesome about that is you can have a smaller warband surrounded by a bunch of undead, which is exactly what's happening in Game of Thrones, and it really like shows you the immense power that a Chaos Space Marine would have over a Loyalist Space Marine, because a Loyalist Space Marine is going to stick to his company, or it's going to stick to his chapter and his battle brothers. They're never going to jump over and get assistance from Imperial Guard, at least not the average chapter. Whereas the Chaos Space Marines, specifically the Apostles of Contagion, have that ability, so much so that they use it to the extreme. Whereas you'll have one Space Marine and thousands of undead. Which is why, or it's another example of why Chaos Space Marines are a lot more powerful than your regular Loyalist Space Marines, even the Primaris Marines, I think. We've been asked what's stronger, a Chaos Space Marine or a Primaris Marine. Situations like this with the Apostles of Contagion, these guys, I feel, are a lot stronger than your typical Primaris Marines, because you'll have a squad of 10, 5, what have you, Primaris Marines. You'll have a squad of 10, 5 Apostles, followed by thousands upon thousands of plague zombies, basically. And it just bolsters them up, and it just goes to show you the gifts that Chaos provide to their followers is far greater than what the Emperor has provided to his loyalist Space Marines. I'm probably going to do a video or a 40Facts video explaining all the benefits of going to Chaos for a Space Marine specifically, because we did one for the regular civilian, but for a Space Marine specifically, why it's more beneficial to go to Chaos than it is to stay with your Emperor who is dying. So if you guys are a Chaos player and you know of any cool gifts of Chaos that you guys would like us to include in that video, please comment down below. Same thing goes with any other topics. If you guys want us to create a video for you guys, just comment down below. There's going to be a part 2 to this chapter. Well, not really for the chapter itself, but we're going to go more in depth into Necrosius, because he is the Sorcerer Supreme for zombies, so it's going to be a really interesting video. So stay tuned for that, subscribe, and if you like our stuff, just jump on over to Patreon. A simple $1 a month helps us create more videos for you guys. If you can't, simply by liking, commenting, and sharing our videos, it helps us out a lot. With that said, this was Gershwin with One Mind Syndicate, signing out.